everyone, we made it. We made it, 2 days, we're here. And we're gonna finish this conference talking about technical SEO, but obviously like international SEO here. So, check. Oh, thank you. There you go, better? Okay, yes? Good? Okay. All right, so international, oh, what's going on with this slide? All right. International SEO, and I'm not going to talk about AI or LLMs or what else? Oh, AEO, is that how we say? Oh, GEO. We'll talk about geo, but not that. So, the other night at the dinner, Cindy Crum asked me, wait, what, you're talking about international SEO, what did I miss? What is new? Absolutely nothing. Nothing is new. Nothing has changed at all. Hreflang tags were introduced 14 years ago by Google, and since then, nothing has changed. The only thing really is IP addresses. It used to matter, but with the rise of CDNs, it doesn't matter anymore as a signal of what the website is for or who it is for. So the goals are still the same, right? Helping Google, returning the right URLs to the right user, and then avoiding duplicate content in the index, and as a bonus, content discovery with Hreflang tags helping as a crawling signal. The toolbox, yes, as I said, has not changed either. We still have the domain strategy, that's probably the big one, and then a bunch of tags, Hreflang tags, and Canonical, noindexed. So for many years before joining Condé Nast, I was working for an agency. I was lucky enough to have a lot of big clients, a lot of challenges, a lot of fun, a lot of finally automation, a lot of manual reviews of Hreflang tags, and a lot of fun situation where I learned like facts. I would not call it fun, but one that I wanted to share is that we work with like a big like video games producer. And we were lucky for the automation of their Hreflang tags via sitemaps that the slug, their URLs were all the same. So as you can see here, no matter what the country was, the name of the game would be the same in the URL. So it's easy enough. We just have to change the subfolder and create those sitemaps. Well, it turns out we learned that not all the games are available in all the countries. For example, in Germany, you cannot sell video games that feature Nazis. So that game did not exist there, and then a bunch of exceptions like that we had to remove, and then a lot of manual review, a lot. So much that I was like, okay, we need to do something about this, and we created a tool at the time that was one of the first tool on technicalseo.com. It's still there, it's still free, it still works, and it's still pretty awesome. So feel free to use it. But using the tools that help with the manual, with the review process, but it did not fix the issues. In fact, Hreflang tags are really hard. It is really hard. Patrick spent a lot of time and energy talking about that over the years. And most recently, a couple of years ago, he ran a study with Ahref. You can find the study on their blog, where out of almost 375,000 domains, like 67% had issues. We'll talk a little bit about the most common issue, which is missing the XDefault tag. It is a best practice. It doesn't if it's missing, it doesn't break the entire cluster, the entire like implementation. But all the other ones, 18% like missing the self-referencing. That's pretty massive, and that breaks the entire implementation, makes Hreflang tags completely useless. And so on top of that, many clients that had those issues, and we had also a situation later on, which seems very backward, but if you remember this, that was on the official website of AMP. That was the official documentation for AMP. If you had like a separate website, desktop and mobile, and an AMP version and 2 different languages. That's only 2, by the way. If you had like more languages, then duplicate that. That was the tagging, the mapping that you had to put in place. There was a nightmare. So yeah, a lot of fun at the agency for many years dealing with all of those challenges. But fast forward a few years and I left the agency and went to Condé Nast. When I got there, about 4.5 years ago, we had 3 main priorities. The top one were to migrate about 60 websites to a new platform. Didn't change the URLs for the most part, so made life a little bit easier, but still, there was a lot of migrations. Anthony was here, was dealing with like 3-4 migrations a week for several weeks. And then we had to get rid of AMP. That was also a very satisfying one. Not gonna lie, AMP is probably the worst thing that happened. Like, SEO 101, do not duplicate URLs, do not have 2 URLs with the same content. Obviously, for international, we have to deal with that, but come on, SEO 101, and they introduce like a new URL. Well, anyway, we're done with AMP, so that's good. And then the last thing was to revamp the Hreflang logic. To paint you the picture, Condé Nast, it's 63 owned and operated websites across 20 brands in 11 markets, plus some franchise websites that we don't really have to deal with, but when it comes to international like syndication, then it does matter because those websites could be in the same language, some most likely are in the same language that we operate in, even though they're in different markets. So most of the sites have more than one language. Some of them are just targeting the US, a couple of them just the UK, but most of the biggest brands, we have them in multiple markets and in the same language. So, the domain strategy, let's talk about that, because most of the sites are using CCTLDs, right? We are targeting the country and not the language. So when it comes to the domain strategy, we have same basic options, right? Like the CCTLDs or the generic TLD, like the .com, subdomains and subfolders. Currently, at Condé Nast, we only have one brand that is targeting a language. It's Wired. We have www.wired.com and es.wired.com. That's the only brand. We got rid of the .co.uk last year after many years of combining the editorial team. So it was already effectively combined. We just migrated finally the site. So Wired is targeting the language and not the country. Everything else, it's about the market. So with that, we have kind of the normal classic challenges, but more specifically, we have a lot of duplicate content, right? Because we syndicate a lot, meaning we publish a story, an article on Vogue.com, tomorrow it's going to be picked up by, could be Glamour in the UK. It could be Architectural Digest in India, if the story is relevant. You can have an article about Taylor Swift's house, and maybe that's relevant for Architectural Digest in India. They will pick that up, and it will be in English as well. So same for Spanish, a little bit less, but still. And because we over-target those websites because of the CCTLDs, then we have situations where a .es that we have in Spain for in Spain for Spain, it's not going to perform well in Mexico. It's not going to perform well in Argentina and other Spanish-speaking countries. So that's the biggest challenge. And the second one is that we're still launching new websites. And when that happens, then it's always the same question. Well, maybe we should avoid to create a brand new domain that we have to maintain that is completely on its own. Maybe we should go with the subfolder. Maybe we should go with the subdomain. If I was just the only one making the decision, and I'm not, maybe, yeah, I would not create a brand new domain. The reality, though, is that particular setup here that I was trying to think, what would be the ideal setup, right? One domain for the language. And even that, I still don't like it. We're thinking, okay, we can have English on www, we can have a subdomain for Spanish, and then subfolders for market-specific landing pages, and then for languages that are usually in only one market, then we put them directly into a subfolder. I don't like that. It's not consistent. Sometimes we're going to have country codes in the subfolder, sometimes languages, like UK, that's not even the country code for United Kingdom. So even that, it's not ideal. So, and the reality, though, is that targeting the market and not the language, well, economically speaking and technically speaking, it makes more sense for ad targeting, which is still a big part of revenue. The second thing that makes it a little bit impractical is the reality of the SERP. And I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of the French surfer. Nothing to do with France. It's a study that was done in Canada many years ago that showed that people tend to click more on .ca than .com for two reasons. A .ca website would likely be offered in French. And second, when people are done like adding items to their cart on the e-commerce site and it's time to check out and shipping, well, guess what? No shipping to Canada. So people in Canada would click more on the .ca. And we see that across multiple countries. That's the same thing in France. That's the same thing in Italy. And in our particular case, recently in Germany. Sorry, the numbers are very small here, but you can see that in the United Kingdom, I think it's 58% of the top 10 results were .coms. So that's perfectly fine. In Mexico and Spain, also the .coms are performing better than the .es or the .mx. Perfectly fine. We can go with the .com, maybe still think about combining those websites into a language-first approach in English and Spanish. But when it comes to Germany, then 78% of the SERP is .de. As much as I hated it, like to launch a brand new website, then we had to go with that. And indeed, like we launched like a CNT Traveler in Condé Nast Traveler in Germany, and it performs really well since we launched. So, and it is on a DE. They did use the two L's though, like the British spelling, which was also like another debate. But anyway, we launched the site. So. All right, and that's the same right now. We are dealing with like Middle East. That's another beast, but turns out that in the Middle East, first of all, that's not a country, right? That's a region. There's multiple countries in it. Turns out 80% of the SERP in the Emirates, in Qatar, like it's all .com. So perfectly fine, and most of our content is in English. And we use .coms there. We don't use the .me. There's nothing to do with Middle East, and that's also a generic domain. So the next thing after the domain strategy, obviously, Hreflang tags. So Hreflang tags. We have all of it automated in the HTML code. We have a syndication system that we call Anchor that editors are able to go to, pick the story that has been published on one brand, select it, translate it if they need to, if it's a different language, different market, and all the code, like the hreflangs, will be added automatically there. So, but again, most of the sites, we have the country code associated with the language in the hreflang tags because we target the country and not just the language. Again, the only exception being Wired, where it's always EN or always ES. The problem, though, and I'll talk about like some other tags, is what if a story on Wired is being picked up by Glamour in the UK. It could happen. Sometimes there's overlap in content. Then now, what do we do with the tags, right? Because we only have EN. That Wired should target the UK regardless of another brand picking up that story or that article. So still some challenges to go through. We're lucky, at least, we don't have like different language in the same market. So we don't operate in Canada, for example, so that would be one of them. So, but we do have like same language, different market. In that case, hreflang tags are still useful just to create that cluster and then for the content discovery piece. But really, there's no real duplicate content, right? The story in Italian and French, even if it's the same one, it's not duplicate content. So we still have like the hreflang tags, but it matters a little bit less. What really is the challenge, it's English and Spanish. So back to the most common issues that Patrick found on those websites is missing the X default. We do not use it. It was in place. We had that situation where the first story, the original story being published, would have the default language tag and the X default. So in this particular example here, Vogue will publish the story in the UK, we'll have the 3 tags, then it's being syndicated in the US, and then that means that like in this particular case, someone from Canada, we're telling Google to serve like the British Vogue version in Google Canada. And that might not be the most relevant, just geographically speaking. The reverse would be the same. Somebody in Switzerland or in Germany, like maybe it's more relevant for them to be on the British site than the US site. So we decided to get rid of those tags and let Google pick which best version in that language would be the best to serve. And turns out it still works. Overall, Hreflang tags work. We get more traffic on the right side, on the right URL based on where the user is. But then we have the franchise websites. There's nothing we can do about that in terms of like integrating them into our system, our syndication system. So we use this whole, like, I don't want to call it a hack because it's officially documented. You cannot see anything here, but the URL's here. It's perfectly documented, like a situation where if you own all the websites in Google Search Console, then you can cross-submit the sitemaps. So you can have Hreflang tags that I submit for franchise websites, for example. There was a time where I think Vogue Philippines like copy-pasted our Met Gala story and it was showing up in the US and not everybody was happy about this, and so we can submit like those sitemaps and tell Google about those franchise websites and implement those tags properly. The next thing that we implemented is the brand priority. This is very important because we have that situation where, again, the original story is going to be published on Vogue, for example, then the day after, like, Glamour is going to pick up the story. And so the tags will be like that. It's perfectly fine. It works. What if, like, an editor at Vogue in the UK was just taking the day off and they come back on Tuesday and then they realize they also want to pick up that story? Then now we prioritize the brand over the timing. So in that particular case, now Glamour is going to just be noindexed and have a canonical tag pointing to the Vogue story in the UK and have those two stories linked to each other, like, because of the brand priority. So that leads me to noindex and canonical tag. In the same language and the same market, this is where we have real duplicate content, right? We don't want those two pages to compete. And so here, that happens a lot. We have Wired and Ars Technica. They, syndicate a lot from each other, and we just simply do that now. We don't have Hreflang tags, obviously. That would not really work. So we have noindex and canonical tag. For a while, I don't know if you remember that, but like it was not a good idea to use those two signals together. Like Google was telling us, it's very confusing. You're telling like that you don't want that URL in the index, but you're also telling us that it's about another URL that is more important. And then, when was that? About 2 years ago, like John Mueller, told us that it depends, but it's perfectly fine, especially in a situation like ours, where really we don't want the syndicated story to compete with the original one. That's really a big no-no. Because even though we are one company, if you work at Wired, you don't want Ars Technica to outrank you, right? So everybody has their own KPIs. That leads me to kind of the last thing that I want to implement right now, because even though Hreflang tags work, we still have a lot of issues with just the reality of the market. And Hreflang tags sometimes not working, especially right now. I see that in the Middle East. And I want to implement geo-redirect. So it has nothing to do really with Google in this particular case, but it's about the original idea is sending the users to the correct URL. And so why, we want to do that? It's because we have brands that are being outranked by a sister brand, but like with their own original content. So Vogue Middle East is going to publish a story. It will be syndicated by Vogue India, and because Vogue India has more authority, because there's a large Indian population in Dubai, for example, then Vogue India is going to outrank Vogue Middle East with Vogue Middle East original content, and obviously that's another issue that we don't want to happen. And Hreflang tags, they have no impact on discover. And the reality now is that like search traffic goes down, discover traffic goes up, at least for us, and then those implementations, they have no impact on that. So we need to kind of do what it takes on our own, regardless of signals that we send to Google, to redirect that traffic where the users are. So it's a potential solution. It's not implemented yet, but that's something that I would like to do. And obviously, the rule would be, in our case, if it's the exact same brand. I'm not going to take a user from Vogue.com to Glamour UK just because they are in the UK. We're not going to do that. So it would have to be like the exact same brand and that particular article available in that market. And with that said, that's all I have. Thank you very much.